Geshindu Mikte Owan Gidro Gunamda Shila Chupa Shoidan Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyat Cholam Sogi Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dani Kyamsuchi Dagi Chushigi Betsonangi Jola Penche Sangel Rupa Sho Cholam Sogi Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dani Kyamsuchi Dagi Chushigi Betsonangi Jola Penche Sangel Rupa Sho Cholan Sogi Chonam La Chancho Badu Dani Gyatsuchi Dagi Chushigi Betsonagi Jola Penche Sange Joba Sho. We have been looking at a set of teachings that is called mind training like the rays of the sun. So we will continue with this set of teachings, but before we do that, we just remind ourselves that here we're dealing with the mind. The Buddha Dharma, when the Buddha Dharma teaches about the mind, it teaches methods for developing happiness and well-being and eliminating suffering. For we recognize that all of us are looking for happiness and well-being, and all of us want to avoid suffering. And therefore, we have to find the methods, we have to make the methods for making that happen.
탑시 야마저 치고는세 탑시 탑의 세력이 가리기 탑에 가리 주식이 세력이 있어요. 저 세력이 대도 생 대화 주식이 탑다 생기 그런 세력이다. 탑고 세력 어떤지 인디 차도
And when we say that we seek happiness and well-being and we want to avoid suffering, of the two levels, the physical and mental levels, the main focus, the main thing that we seek is mental happiness and well-being and to avoid mental suffering. And in order to make that happen, we combine method and wisdom inseparably. So for what end do we combine these two, method and wisdom? We do that in order to focus on the mental level, in order to engender mental happiness and well-being, and in order to avoid mental suffering.
아니 노르도 스타라 디 노르도 아무도 세디 디기 소디 류 데도에라면서 세디 류데 체도 아니 셈 종다디 카카토야 카카토야 폰토토야 베카고 류 디기 체다 나도 지금 상동체야로서 지금 렌즈체야로서 디디 있고 카요 라요에 핑거도 돼서 디 이테드 마테리 톤 감들 yani sem digitality ani sem deva karandi sem doma karandi ting wenzi chirtoni ani thalam titem bayno ya kaya layo pendochi yaji jada yung tugu yasares.
And this is a point that we need to make, that the main focus is the mental level. For when we look at the methods which are taught in the Buddha Dharma, methods for generating happiness and well-being and avoiding suffering, if you apply them in a way in which you expect them to affect your body in this life, in that you're looking for physical pleasure, physical well-being, you're wanting to avoid physical pain, which means that your main orientation is this life. It is a mistaken way of applying the Buddha Dharma into practice. For when we look at the things that we can accomplish in this life, like, for example, things on a physical level, you can train your mind in a particular way, but it is very hard for it to directly affect your physical state. For that, we have things which are more immediate: food, drink, medical treatment, or what have you. So when we say that in general we're seeking happiness and well-being and we want to avoid suffering, here the context is what happens to us on a mental level. So then the question arises: what is mental happiness and well-being? What is mental suffering? If we want to avoid suffering and we want to develop happiness and well-being, well, what are they? So if we then are able to hone down on that and to identify what is the happiness and well-being that we seek and what is the mental suffering that we want to avoid, Geshe reckons that we'll get a really practical benefit from the Buddha Dharma.
And just to show that is so because the Geshe resource, and will to same sound machine and deva drova dumar sayagi ya kazus bedun chen chungri thing maris so yoris same sound machine na deta dumar shon de kya chikseja odi.
And Shantideva, in his Gato Bodhisattva of life, became a bit exasperated in one of his verses, and it says that so long as you don't understand the reality of the mind, you might apply a lot of effort into your training, but you will not get anything from that.
These are same and they do same the and Yahuchun Muzich Matuna. Same deva division tab down to Masay tab down and it same 10 maras. Here's a Anji Lojo say, Nega D and same round tone, Ranazu Kalkalia, and it sometime Mountain to make it, and it Namdra solid, and it Shannon solid, some down, same Maki of Mang with us. Just get me in go. But dini chikpigilaya and loya chesche, logo chesche, look yachel death one, Kuyans death one, and same one, same kibadi, nyon dollars. But di what the teaching Shilashani and Lojong Yami Chevana, Yazija also Pentoy is the rock.
So we keep in mind that the goal of our training is to develop mental happiness and well-being and to eliminate suffering. This is the main point. And if we don't take that into consideration, if we're trying to cultivate other forms of happiness and well-being, like, for example, physical physical well-being or physical pleasure and so forth using the Dharma, well, your mind will not be, you cannot really use those mental training in order to accomplish that. So here the main focus that we put is on our mental training. And of course, at times, when we look at what's happening to us on a mental level, we find that when there is an excessive level of discursive conceptions that arise in the mind, in a sense that, in a little sense, we can say that when there's too much thinking, we sometimes tend to get really anxious. We become fearful. There is more unhappiness that arises in our mind when we don't really take control over the way that we think. Whereas if we do take control of the way that we think and we make the mind become vast and spacious, we extend our mind, there is less unhappiness that occurs in the mind, and we take that as the basis for our training, our mental training.
And some of the things because 속 기땀 공부도 좀 공부는 된 주었어요. 기호가 속 기땀. 인디 소리도 이렇게
Okay.
속 기땀에 랑 류던 속담은 순진권과 땅이죠. 류진권과 장바도 인진이 켜봤죠. 대부분 남는 랑 문제도 소는 권을 얘기하는 산지단의 체 상시 시에탄스 랑 류던 소는 이 제시 땅이죠. 소작군지 대부분 탐제단을 그때 대부분 인식이 조금 좀 시도 신군단이 저와도 그때는 주시 연전 주시고 그게
So in continuing the reading from Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, in the previous session, we looked at the section that explained how to meditate on giving and taking, and to combine it and to do this meditation alternately. So just to read a few verses at the end of this section that summarize this point, it says the special verses collected by topic. Say, your body and life should be given to all sentient beings. Love and compassion should be given equally to all living creatures. Earnestly wishing all evil to ripen upon your mind stream, rejoice in all merits and think of the great being, the Buddha. And you should give away your body, life, and mind, and let all the misdeeds of all living beings ripen on me. By accepting all the misdeeds, may these beings avoid suffering, and make others' suffering your own, and give your own happiness to others.
제가 원무도 속 땅나오야 이게 속땅 순진권과 땅 자고리 송원이 이게 탑직된 거다. 탑갓된 거였어요. 단지 시원한 신기 샘기 디지털의 탑 샘 동아세 탑 특징이 된 거다. 디 렌트고 왔어. 먼저 디 렌트고 왔어.
When special verses collected by topic by Nagarjuna say, your body and life should be given to all sentient beings, love and compassion should be given equally to all living creatures. Here, this text is teaching us the way to cultivate mental happiness and well-being and to eliminate mental suffering. This is what this text is teaching us.
생기 동화디 생기 동화디 생비게 가서다 차당 숙치되고 로 차당 숙치되고 생기 동화디고 차당 고야 차당 기사기 시조도 가르치기 랑 류다 소야 차바치시디 랑 소야 차니 아니 시험 방을 끼고 인자 단 샤바티스 슈체슈비 시디파 샘르타야 합시 제거나 착신 용도에 용도였어. 다 디스고 그래서 완전 랑글류의 속 자체이 지향 가서 딴 거.
Now, looking at the mental suffering that we experience and wondering in what way does it arise? Well, you can say that big portion of it arises due to strong anger and attachment. Because of an excessive level of anger and attachment, we experience mental suffering. And the foundation for the development of anger and attachment is the strong attachment that we have to our body and life. So when we have strong attachment to our body and life, strong aversion to others arises as an outcome of that. So here we train in giving away our body, in relinquishing our body or giving away our body. And that is a method for reducing the strong attachment that we have to our body. Otherwise, if we don't think of the reason why we employ this meditation practice where we think of giving away our body as a way of reducing the attachment that we have to the body, we might think, what is the purpose of practicing something like that?
The Kula Chamba Bongo Dawan Kesati, Shanla Ming, Dawan Kivans, Tela Ming, Chamba Combina, Dawan of the Mongolis. In the country, Dorbina, Ninji Kavachi, Ninji somebody, and Chosumano, Ninji somebody, and Rank Yonsu Kano Chetuvaina, then it might give you two Sheshamas. Might give you 2 humans.
We hold our body and life to be so precious and we become strongly attached to them. So we become strongly attached to our body and life, and also we develop aggression or aversion to others. So we practice giving away our body as a way of reducing the attachment that we have to the body. And we also practice love and compassion in order to reduce the anger or the aversion that we have to others. So here, this verse says, think of compassion. Love and compassion should be given equally to all living creatures. So when we then think of compassion in this way, when our mind is completely full of compassion, there is no room for unhappiness to occur.
And most talk to you, spend ma Rangi Pula, Shindu, Zewi, Mati, and preach the Rangi soil, let down to work. The deep cousin Injishuchi on the Remodel, Shemakin Zakan. The Nanshingi, Sinji Kone, Inji come to Wana, Gunsin Tonton, Inji come to Wana, then a Rangi Luso, Sinji Shinji, Tangalea, and Tesson Korea. The Toby and Semle, Lotoki, and Sem Shumba Kaduna, in it, Pershi Tower, dead to it. The Tilly Thompson, the DJ US.
So when we think of compassion in this way, impartial compassion, and we develop a sense of concern to others that is similar to the love that a mother has to her own child, in that when that strong love is present, a mother can give away even her own life, can sacrifice her own life for the sake of her child. She can do that because of compassion. We train in the development of compassion in this way, and we take a rational approach to the development of compassion, right? So our compassion is based on reason. So when we get to the point in which we can give up even our own life for the sake of others, there would be no doubt, no hesitation in our ability to do so. Geshe feels that a state of mind would be so courageous, so brave, that it will have this positive effect over a mind. We would be able to live a life with a sense of courage, with a sense of without discouragement, and that will have a long-lasting effect of our life. And this is a way of generating happiness and well-being in our life.
Giving namen sonum devadi khadeni yuguri islam digbi namen de rangi gelangon desu kanji rangla chabe chabati to ani digbi namen dumat legres jena jesu iran chero soba ani sangi gonda samo so ti tone giving dev sonum ki devati to giving namen sonum devati.
And this text continues in saying, earnestly wishing all evil or all negativities to ripen upon your mind stream, rejoice in all merits, and think of the great being, the Buddha. So, negativities which come into fruition in the form of suffering, in the form of torment, occur because of attachment that we have to ourselves. Because of attachment that we have to ourselves, we accumulate negativities that result in the fruition of suffering. And opposite to that, we have happiness that comes through virtue, that comes through merit, that is achieved or cultivated through rejoicing in the merits of others, through thinking of the qualities of the Buddha, the great being.
Sempre le so gesto de Himajivaje le so di le dan so ni di ko yanga di ani kasada yi gesto dan to kanji yi di sem di so gesto ba chebana sem tan ji sem so gesto ba chebana ani namgi du wan di yungmaras. And
so this section contains a personal advice for us. For looking at the next verse, it says, you should give away your body, life, and mind. In that, in a life we chase after our body and life. In that sense, we come under the control of our body and life, and in so doing, we're incapable of accomplishing what we see. But when we think of our body and life are branches that can be put to use through developing mental control. So we want to bind them to our mind. So this is the reason why this section says you should give away your body and life and mind.
And Simjan Tamjiki, the Tone goes to Singapore, Simjan Tamjiki, and it Dibu Megi Nami, Dumati, Sulnachini, and it Janki, and it Devakari, Ha Jayaki, or Dimti, and it Lojon Chavana, and it Samdi, Samayata Jonder Jolas, Sam Jonder Jondi, same people, and Luso, they are chatting, the and Chapati, Nyondro, Chapa Nyondro, Siena down the Nyondro Kanji, same way as Shitichi, Yungu, the digital was.
And let your misdeeds of all beings ripen on me. By accepting all their misdeeds, may these beings avoid suffering. So we train our mind in taking on the suffering of others. We practice a meditation of giving and taking, Tonglen in Tibetan. We think that all the ripening suffering of others are taken on. We take them on and we give away in return all the happiness and well-being to others. And we train our mind in this way. And if we do that, then we reduce the attachment that we have to ourselves. We reduce attachment. We reduce anger. And as a result of that, we attain mental peace, happiness and peace.
So negati chatan kesagi da yudi nevasos achego da sara manju thatu di sherab le andi sherab tauni sherab khata gole sherab ke ne tauni yudi ni matoba tauni ani chatan kesagi yudi ani zawini ani sem di chatan kesagi nevati yutombani computer
So we give away our body and life for the sake of others, and in so doing, we come to see that the things that we become attached to, the things that we dislike or anger, the objects of anger and attachment, do not exist in a way that anger and attachment make them, which is similar to the cultivation of wisdom. So when we develop wisdom, the wisdom of reality, we come to see that the objects of our consciousness do not exist objectively. They do not exist objectively, and therefore also the objects of anger and attachment do not exist objectively. Which means that here we're getting at a similar point that we get to in a meditation on emptiness. When we practice this meditation of giving and taking, we come to see that the objects of our anger and attachment do not exist in the way that the anger and attachment make them seem to be. So as a result of that, we reduce our anger and attachment.
Nanzingi Shenyumevat. Nanzi Shiondi, so Rangi Nalamini, Ki Raman Troubles, Zimbabwe, Nanzi Shan. So Nanzing Mipa, and they are Tani, Chekwedi, and a sheriff Pompicavita, Kasota, Dana so the Tiros, Shin by a mini, Daniel Comata, Rana mean Daniel community. So the Ranami Damo Come, Nanga Cheshe were the person, Chapan kisses, so Chapa kisses, Maribi, Miba, and not Chan, Chapaki, Nidanki, or do you want that? And if we give charge on so the Ranami were the directions. The Ram Dameva, and the Ram Pita, Raman Mato, you didn't matter two, and the Louis Common Tondi, and Telia Bibi. Chapati Ranshin Gardo was Chapa Mena, Ranami with Chapa Mena, Shanami with Dandi, Yosa Korea. No.
And with the wisdom of selflessness, we mainly come to see that the conceived object of our ignorance does not exist. We come to recognize that we have a state of mind ignorance that operates in a mind stream. But the conceived object of ignorance doesn't exist. In a more specific way, we'll look at ignorance of grasping it as self, ignorance of grasping it I. So we me, we do not exist from our own side. I do not exist from my own side. I do not exist objectively. This is the main training that we take up when we develop the wisdom of selflessness, the recognition that I do not exist objectively. I do not exist from my own side. So we mentioned grasping at I, grasping at a self. We can grasp it, the I that is we ourselves or the self of others. But really mainly the main point that we want to realize through the development of wisdom is our own selflessness. We have anger and attachment operating in our mind stream, and they're based on ignorance. Ignorance of grasping at I or me, as if I exist objectively, as if I exist from my own side. And because of ignorance that consists of I as existing objectively, anger and attachment arise, and through that we behave in a non-virtuous way. We cultivate non-virtuous actions. So when we then come to see that I do not exist for my own side, I do not exist objectively, naturally our attachment abates. And when attachment ceases, anger will cease as a result.
Shana migi zawadi ninjiris. It's a tiny code also did. Jengo Dali Jawada Lang and Shen Chase. He sounded Jevos. Kanji Masu Gilaya. Chasan Shuchu Yavati. Jevo Yav Ninji Shuchu Yet. Chombaina. And it to the nega conjurata. Deva Jengu Yavanza. The tea each other. And it Shen Town Ranki. And it be. Le Tanyadi, and the Karisandi, somewhat Jujitanachi. Tap Digit Single Service.
And it says, make others suffering your own and give your own happiness to others. So, focusing on ourselves with that sense of holding ourselves dear is attachment. Whereas when we shift the focus and we look at others and consider them dear, we develop compassion to them. So we change our orientation rather than just focusing on ourselves with a sense of love, with a sense of care, and thereby developing attachment. We focus on others and develop compassion to them. So we replace attachment with compassion. And that will lead to a state of perpetual happiness and well-being. So this is the main mental transformation that we take up. This is the meaning. We exchange a sense of attachment with compassion to others.
That is the you that you should give the shit. That kanji, and it don't get so some content. Kanji Sanji chance of Punjil that and it wanted to be Changi Chanju sent Ranjulia, Maki, even they were going to create a race. Doika Sonomas, Judica, the Harrison will say, and that is that you introduce more time.
And then the text gives us a citation from the regular confession of Sambhada's ritual, which is likely to be a tantric ritual. So looking at the meaning of the teachings of Sutra and Tantra, all the teachings the Buddha gave, which are summarized in the sutras and tantras, all of them are teaching us the development of loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. So they teach us how to develop the mind of enlightenment, how to maintain it, prevent it from declining, and how to increase it more and more.
Kati Pem Chin Pem Chilling Songs, the Pem Chisaman, the Tamchin, Tevachin, Kat Enjoy, the Yonzon Songs, the Lepshaw.
So the regular confession of St. Bada's ritual also says, may the miseries of all sentient beings mature on me. May they enjoy happiness due to my virtues. In all my lives, may my 3 doors be transformed into the excellent vase and the wish-granting tree. So this is the meaning not only of this text, but you can say that the whole corpus of the Mahayana Dharma.
Vinang Topat in Tatu Nera to Jimmy Bang, Yava Mayana Seti, Sunjan comes to Sangis into a Chadar Yamas. That is Topat Torture Chiva, Tatu Nera to Jimmy was Gandhi, and it pig when a Nientu Dajum will combat. Tatu Bidujati, Nientu Dajum will combat, some want to change it, and it Zordovici Yomaras. And the Yovana, Simjan Tamja Sangis to Yursadi, condition of said. What it is.
Now, to conclude this section on the meditation and giving and taking, the text gives rise to a certain doubt that could exist in our minds. And it says, so this is what is taught in many of the great vehicle texts containing the Buddha's words and the commentaries to them. But should you wonder whether there are not those who belong definitely and ultimately to the lineage of hearers and so to realizers, and if so, how could it be possible for all sentient beings to become Buddha? That's the doubt, right? So someone might say that those Hinayana practitioners, we call them hearers or solitary realizers, when they reach their goal, the state of Ahachi, if that is for them the final goal, they've completed the goal. Isn't it that for them it's like the end of line? And if for them this is the end of line, why is it that we say that all sentient beings then will become Buddhas? This is the doubt that is brought up here in this section.
The Dadi landed, that Tevasum the Shevanis, Kakolia, and Nientu Teva, Langi Teva. That changes them all, Tevachim routines, and in Nientu Rangi is in this one shower. The Yoris, and Tatu Tevasum the Tevasum say Yoris. In the young, the two Niente Maris, to so Gombash is a Shembach Yoris. Gombash is a Shembach in the tennis, Sungur model, Sangi Chetan Cheki, Tatu Ki, Dujadi, and Sangi Komotoya de Lemon, the Shembach Yoris.
To answer that, it says you should know that the presentation of the 3 vehicles is interpretable for temporary purposes, whereas in the ultimate and definitive sense, there is only one vehicle. In that we do speak about the 3 vehicles, right? So we have the vehicle of hearers, of solitary realizers, and the Mahayana vehicles, the vehicles of bodhisattvas. And we speak about those who are definite in the lineages. So we have hearers which are definite in the lineage, solitary realizers which are definite in the lineage, and we also speak about definite type bodhisattvas. So though in scriptures you do find such descriptions and such teachings, here this text says that you should know that you should interpret those teachings using another intention, an alternative intention, or alternative thought, whereas definitively or in an ultimate sense, this is not the case. Definitively or ultimately, there is one vehicle, the one that leads to the state of Buddhahood.
That panel, that panel, and Jambet Senju Kavaya, Teva Sunging in Jonga, Teva Chung Japanese, she saw teaching the long mangos, the dealer software, and in Petachi Shon and Medium Long Mambu English.
So in order to support this assertion, it says in the expression of the names of Manjushri, The result of the one vehicle is present in the three vehicles' determination to be free. So we do have ample spiritual references to the three types of vehicles, to the three lineages, but we also have scriptural citations such as this, which says that at the end, or ultimately, or definitely, there would be one vehicle, the one that leads to Buddhahood.
number 10 Jematubana, and each aya sort of chana. Then the Yakum was danger that the only way Susan Bedrinda and church Jango, number Sanji, Church, Chichi, and the Sinjatan, they were never to say he chairs or never. Chichi, one thing to be giant, things of shoot, and Zamani and Lodron Contagion, sure with things savage, Lodron to fish your summers.
If we can study Sutra and Tantra in a complete sense, we'll be able then to take on all the teachings of the Buddha and understand them in a complete sense. Otherwise, if our understanding is really partial, there's a danger that our mind will become beset with doubt, we will become confused. We might sometimes hold one position and in another time we'll hold a different position, and that sense of confusion would also cause discouragement. And therefore it's good to put an effort into our study, into our training, so that we can develop this complete sense of study of Sutra and Tantra. Otherwise, if we think that we can keep it really simple and just limit our practice or contain our practice with well wishes, like for example, may all sentient beings have happiness, and because of happiness it's good, but then we can do more than that. We can do more than that in first of all developing a good knowledge base, and then being able to then apply it to a greater extent of practice.
Should there the Suzu Cardo did it, something should one government should single and Jango to Sonia Mother Source. Tell them by now, tell them deep to some Chivana, senior. But this child such a race cigarette. Then I'm also passing the Shomoya. Gandhi, you should such a set. Gavan Kiwi, Som. Negative jig, when the driver can say negative jig, Gandhi you such sages. Gandhi you such a should dig, chop jig, and tell them me take it, not a chin, and don't get ma, and danger jig namoya, civil chin, singing Jerome Moto, and it gathered Kirosukan Choyons. On the system, and it have short answer. Short chick don't have it. But in this day, that beach is suitable and gambling is such a behavior. And the chance of chin to it, you go, and I think it always.
So Geshe has been emphasizing all along the importance of supplementing our study with the writings of the great Tibetan master Rinpoche Lamtsum Kapa, who composed text on Sutra and Tantra, Sutra and Mantra. So if we want to develop an understanding of everything that is included within those systems of Sutra and Tantra, then we can do that. It depends upon Lama Tsongkhapa's writings. His writings on Sutra and Tantra. So if we study them, if we reflect upon those teachings, we can develop that understanding. Just in order to illustrate that, for example, in one of the systems that we follow, that we train it in Buddhism, the perfection system, we have 21 great commentaries that were composed by Indian masters. So some of those commentaries were of a great extent, some of them are of medium extent, but 21 great commentaries of great Indian masters. Now, Lama Tsongkhapa took all those commentaries, those 21 commentaries, and analyzed them and concluded which points in those commentaries are admissible and which one of them are not admissible. He composed this explanation in a text that is called the Golden Rosary of Excellent Explanation, which contains something like 1,000 pages. So if we then want to develop an understanding of this perfection system, also with the great commentaries that explain, and altogether at the end, reach a certain conclusion with respect to what is admissible and what is not admissible, this is a text that we can study. And it seems that no other Indian master have really dealt with that extent of weight, in that no other Indian master took all those different commentaries, combined them together and drew conclusion from those commentaries, which can be brought into our practice. There are many such quotations in the Great Vehicle. So it continues in saying, having familiarized yourself with giving and taking to some extent, the way to practice it concisely is as follows. The text says, these two should be made to ride on the breath. This text is the 7-point mind training, right? So this next line in this text says, these two should be made to ride on the breath. When the section says that these two should be made to ride on the breath, and it mentions the breath, we can link it up with the essence of the practice that we want to develop. At the end, in order to manifest the state of enlightenment, we need to combine shamatha and vipassana, common abiding and special insight. So when we bring these two together, when we combine them, common abiding and special insight, on that basis, at the end, we can manifest the state of enlightenment. And in order to combine common abiding and special insight, shamatha and vipassana, we begin with shamatha. And in order to practice shamatha, common abiding, we first of all, create the prerequisites for the development of calm abiding. We practice in a way that is an isolated place, a place that is not susceptible to noises such as, for example, conversations of others, a place in which we don't hear the discussions or the voice of others. We find a really nice place for the cultivation of shamatha, place that is not noisy, a place that, in which we enjoy good conditions so that the mind is not susceptible to distraction. After all, when we hear different noises, voices, and so forth, they do cause that mental distraction. So we find a place that is not susceptible to that. And also, in order to make sure that the mind is not susceptible to that wandering, to distraction, we can cultivate a meditation on the breath, right? So breathing in and breathing out. So rather than arresting or stopping a breathing process that can, of course, lead to death and so forth, rather than doing that, we use the breathing process in order to focus our mind. So we focus on breathing out and breathing in, exhaling and inhaling. And here the text says that we can also combine that with the meditation on giving and taking. Or we can say it differently, we can combine the breathing process with the meditation on giving and taking, so that if we focus on giving and taking, you can say that also as a byproduct on the side, we can use that for a practice of calm abiding or shine practice, so that altogether in a practice we will not be wasting time.
Yi nang du ya to ya sha go islam dita so islam so se du u tong che ti tong da so so go ra u tong ne me ba so yo ba kan ji so de u cha shi u cha shi o di so de da u tong ne che ni pe ju chi tu ya o di so da kan ji ju cha sang di 아니 양념 지야야 땅 두고 다 간지 양념인데 두고 지내고 요가나 아니 뒤쪽 강요거디 양념인데 양념 지야야 아니 땅 두에 정말나 다 양념인데 두고 산지세디 근데 요새 다 니메바나 당나당 자기 뒤쪽 두고 지내야 지제들 뒤쪽 망시지 아니 차강 쳐야 땅샤바나 근데 준비돼 백하고 와서
We previously spoke about wanting to bring under the control of our mind, our body, and life, right? So binding them to the mind. So when we speak about body and life, life here can also be taken to be breath, in a sense that breath, breathing out and breathing in, is part of our life. If we don't breathe out, breathe in, then of course we're not going to be alive. So we want to use all occasions, all situations for our practice. And if we can do that, we can reach a high level in our practice that can then result in the state of Buddhahood. Otherwise, if we don't try to bring all those different aspects of our life and use them for our practice, it might be that we still give way to anger and attachment and so forth, landing us in difficult situations.
The Tommy Changitsina, Jean Gilong Chip, Pabon Drum, Lu Long to soon he gets up, Nanki, take your Gisunja Tangela Town. At that time, 7 million, there were 30 tons of assumption. Long Nang to move it say, Council Gisunja Tangi, Gyukunju, David Donga Tangi, Rangi, Landi. At that time, to go on the tower. Some Heather.
When you have acquired some training in the preceding processes you excel, imagine that you're giving your body, possessions, and virtues of the 3 times to all sentient beings under the sky, and that they thereby obtain ultimate and uncontaminated bliss. As you inhale, you should imagine that you're taking into your heart all the sufferings of every being in the three realms, as well as their causes, and that they are thereby completely free from all misery and its causes. Now, this practice of giving and taking, which is combined with the breath, is done on the basis of our understanding of the two truths and the four truths. So these are subjects that we have to understand. And on that basis, we practice giving and taking and combine it with the breath. Without developing an understanding of the two truths, the four truths, and so forth, if we take up this meditation practice in which we just think of giving and taking and combining it with the breath, our desired result would be rather limited. Practicing in this way, the mind and breath will flow in the same direction, so you will overcome distraction and strengthen mindfulness. Particularly when you think of this statement from a tantric perspective, from the perspective of mantra, practicing in this way, the mind and breath will flow in the same direction. In mantra, one of the important points in our training is to reach as the same operation or single operation of mind and wind. If you do that, you will overcome distraction and strengthen mindfulness.
and same charge combine and no so young marks, Mayandi, and Champayananda, Sheraminanda, and top the number child race. That did to musical. Then this time young, to some because then young culture race. What did that?
So we have concluded the section that explains what to do in the meditation session and meditating on giving and taking as a practice, as a part of the practice of exchanging self with others. So this is what we do in the actual session. We combine the tongue and meditation with the breath, and through that we cultivate a state of mind which is not subject to rumination or to distraction. And when we do that, then we can harness the power of the mind for the development of wisdom. So the development of wisdom and other positive state of mind will carry a greater strength. So this is what we do in the actual meditation session. And the next section in the text explains what to do in between sessions, the practice to be followed in the period after and in between the meditation sessions.
Should the didn't tamni and Anji gong kawi and some of the Tunsum Kalia, that Tunsum Dinga, Tusumashi, Tunsum Chapel. The Dikalia, Anji de la Samuchia Matanji, Dikalia, and a Namian Chigutolia, Tansavana, and Tanji Nudinji on Tumaris. In that Tunsum Kalia. Tanji did you on your check? He getting each other. To some the child kind of some language. A deep kitchen.
So we might be spending an hour or two in meditation, and then we finish our meditation, we rise from our meditation into a period that is called in-between meditation sessions. So actually looking at the day, most of the time during the day, we spend in between meditation sessions. So if we don't use our mind to think in a particular way, if we allow our mind to be subject to distraction, rumination, and so forth, our mind will still lack power, will not have the desired power or strength. So here we have instructions on what to do in between meditation sessions, how to cultivate a certain way of thinking, which will also support our meditation sessions. So this is a really important section.
Yeah.
So we begin with the next two lines taken from the 7-point mind training. Concerning the three objects, three poisons, and the three virtues, the instructions to be followed in brief is to take these words to heart in all activities.
Then get some the tea dosha that to give it also share in chamberson jam give us a publishing.
Shut up, ninja, and it's soba. Concerning the three objects, friends, enemies, and strangers, the three poisons, of course, anger, attachment, and ignorance, and the three virtues. The three virtues could be understood in different ways. Here, Geshe reckons that one likely application of the three virtues would be wisdom, compassion, and patience.
That the Jolom could Tsiki Jan said, young Ketchuchi, Manzu send the Sambatan, Kani Lavani, Shoot Chesu Gasjana service. Kani Lavaina, Shoot Chesu, the Tsiki Jan said, Kani Lavas, the Benomidlia, Gonda Lavas in assembly, and dream of somebody. Chitanda Yapordania. Kali Malavaina, never the time. Passion is somebody Shigmara. And so Chigota. Kanji Kali loves a Jelaya, Ben, any Champichapet. Passion is some coverage. So in a belly and Kassan Jella, and same Koyan bridge. You know that Jolon Sigijan said, somebody Samaimba. When I'm touching. And content sugar and content to combat some money, can see the shooting with your and tender some of them. And semi shavina, then it top sharing for us. The delivery fish soon was to be John said.
This section in the translation says, in brief, the essence in brief is to take these words to heart in all activities. There's another reading that can be applied to this section in the Tibetan language. So rather than taking those words to heart, we can regard this section as saying that train in whatever you do, verbalize whatever you do, train in words, in that not just kind of think about it, but also say it out loud. So if we say things out loud in terms of stating our intention and so forth, it brings more power into our practice. Just in order to illustrate that, suppose that you've offended another person and you need to apologize. You say sorry to that person. You can, in your heart, think that what I've done is wrong and kind of, I kind of feel that this is something that you need to purify. But without really saying that you're sorry to the other person, the situation is not going to be completely purified. Whereas if on top of feeling sorry in your heart, you're also able to verbalize it, to speak about it, to say sorry, then you can also make the other person's mind become okay, become peaceful. And through that, negativities can certainly be purified. So when we're doing our meditation, when we have certain prayers that we do every day, rather than just reciting it in our heart, it's good to also verbalize it, to say them out loud, and to stop in certain sections in order to think about them, in order for the meaning of what we say to appear in our mind. So just in order to illustrate that, one of the verses in the Lamrim meditation found in the Lama Chopa is asking for the blessings of the Lama, so that all negativities and obscurations without exceptions ripen upon me. And right now, when may I be able to invest all sentient beings in happiness and bliss. I'm not saying the right translation or kind of the precise translation, but that's the meaning, right? Please, O Venerable Lama, please bless me so that all negativities and obscurations without exception of all sentient beings ripen upon me. And may I invest all sentient beings in happiness and bliss. So think about it. If you are able to not just think about it, but if you stand in front of representations of body, speech, and mind, right? So you have those reference points in your mind, and in their presence, you're saying those words out loud, and you're really meaning from the bottom of your heart. You not just say them, but you mean that. Then this practice carries such great power.
Simjen Teda Dusu Maybe gets at the Demo Kuchim Sambatavon Jedo. Russia knew to Jono Kumjeta, Ninsen, good Kumjet to Yamson number Chadi. Gongrum Parvade Niji Chempo Ten Royan, Dina, Jono Kumjeta, two Kumjet, Simjan Kumjeta, Hombacho, Shesoma Taros.
When the six senses come into contact with the six objects, forms, sounds, smells, and so forth, such as those that are attractive, unattractive, and neutral, we can also include within that friends, enemies, and strangers. If the three corresponding poisons or disturbing emotions, anger, attachment, and ignorance arise, sincerely train your mind. Think, by these means, I have cut off all the disturbing emotions of all the many beings overpowered by them in this world. May they thus abide in virtue and be freed from the three poisons. Practice this in all activities, whether standing, strolling, lying, or sitting, and at all times, whether day or night. Just as Kamala Shila's stages of meditation says, the great compassionate one in all his actions, whether walking or standing and at all times, must acquaint himself with all sentient beings. Such a thought should be contemplated by reflecting on the following lines.
대권 달라면 있지. 전주선이 되고 들어가는 쪽으로서 대들 루신 제비 공부 잡고지. 저같이 미션이 많이 담는 그 공부체가 되지. 길타를 위자선데 Teni Kyongwa Chiki Kyamu Donjon Bawa Tanta, Donjon Bawa Tanta, Jona Java Chiki Mu Kochu Chumu Chumuta, Jamyoga Chiki Kyamu Karna Sho Marna Chasa Chiki Samba Taban Bema Lotun Wu Tamata, never Tonji, do not Tonji, Toy your Yingi. The wrong so Moton Chow, Michanian, the Chinchu Yokan Musu, Marshis of Kendit to me Tambosunji, Jetazi to Twin, only branches you supermanzekos.
So such a thought should be contemplated by reciting the following lines. May the misties ripen on me, and may all my virtues ripen on them. May all sentient beings' sufferings mature on me, and through my virtues may they all be happy. Whatever agonies beings may suffer, may they ripen on me alone. Through all virtues of bodhisattvas, may wandering beings enjoy bliss. This must be practiced from the depth of your heart. The great Shalabha said, you can train and accustom yourself to these instructions of mine, neither in the manner of a single long beam, no matter how level or extended it may be, nor like a stone rolling down a rugged hillside, no matter how tough, nor like stagnant, lukewarm pond water. But if you strive with absolute determination, as the saying goes, red as blood and white as curd, then like a donkey emerging from a flock of sheep, you will be freed from all interferences and sufferings. If you hesitate over whether it is proper or improper, or whether you can or cannot engage in the training, you will not be successful. The method of exchanging self and others is equivalent to the first 3 points of the 7-point cause and effect training in the awakening mind, such as recognizing sentient beings as having been our mothers. The special wish has not been dealt with separately, since it is integral to the actual trainings in love and compassion within the practice of giving and taking.
Mashiso Gundit Dumi Tamusu Dajin Jiu Tsuyunga Sadi Lojon Dinamo Tsudi Yasichim Shivali Pigita Niji Pombi Valley Tuji Dajin Yangji Pombi the Niji the Chusu Kizu Suganza and Dilia Jimichi Gundimanga Dum Tommy Magam Jimmy, deep service so Kasana Mashi, Chende, Chesu Koyati, so young down, Niji Kiachi. Chevaza Dinawaya, Dajin Yamji Logom, Niji, Chemotini, one get to Yavaza. We say Jimmy, Mashi Chende, Chesu, so to go by your Dajin.
Now, one point that can be pulled out of this section in order to make some clarification is done in the following passage. The method of exchanging self and others is equivalent to the first 3 points of the 7-point cause and result training in the awakening mind, such as recognizing beings as having been our mothers. So we have the first 3 steps in the meditation on the 7-fold cause and effect personal instructions, recognizing sentient beings as having been our mothers, recognizing or becoming mindful of the kindness and developing the wish to repay the kindness. And when we meditate on it in this way, we develop a sense of closeness to others, affection to others, and compassion to others. Here, the author of this text says that if you meditate on the method of exchanging self with others, it is in lieu of meditating on the 7-fold cause and effect personal instructions, which implies that you don't have to, on the side, meditate also on the 7-fold cause and effect personal instructions. For if you meditate on exchanging self with others, you can give rise to a fully qualified compassion which is compassion, and thereby cultivate bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. Shall we leave the text here for today? Have you got any questions? All right, let's leave it here for now. So we'll leave it here for now. We're doing a few dedication prayers. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen and rise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. O powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Savior of the soul land teachings and transmigratory greater beings, who makes extremely clear the path of his unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You uphold this abused moral way, yourselves in the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading much in us victorious doctrine, who mercifully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you.